But I do think that reading my sister's books and just not even reading their books, but just talking to them, specifically Jinger, I feel like talking to Jinger before her book came out and talking specifics, I feel like did, it kind of did rock my world a little bit.
Everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I am Jen. This is Fundy Fridays, and here on my channel I talk about different aspects of Christian fundamentalism, American conservative politics, pop culture, and gay stuff. And today I am doing just the world's quickest Duggar update. I don't even want to consider this as canon in my Duggar update series. Like, there's actually not very much information, and I kind of feel guilty about that. And I guess that's something that I need to disentangle is my relationship with capitalism and this productivity and like the fear of not having a video with a bunch of views and all that stuff. Like, I need to just let that shit go and let God, you know what I mean? And so I was worried when I was researching this video that there wasn't even going to be enough to talk about, that it was only going to be like 10 minutes, and I need to just tap back into what brought me here to YouTube in the first place, which is just the enjoyment of creation, and views be damned. Like, I don't need a million views. I have my Genonites, and you guys appreciate seeing me no matter what I talk about, and that's something that kind of makes this job worth it. It makes my life worth living, quite frankly. Every time I'm self-conscious, I get a nice comment. Every time I think that I'm like nothing and I should just leave YouTube, like, I get the complete opposite of that in my messages. Like, you guys are just so amazing, and I think that we got a really good thing going on here. So anyways, what is today's video about? I just have like 4 things to update you on when it comes to the Duggars. Nothing out of the ordinary. I just had heard that Joy was disentangling, which is like a evangelical way of saying that you're deconstructing, but you don't want to be associated with filthy atheists. I had heard that, and then I was like, oh, I should do a video about it. And then I saw that that was like maybe 2 or 3 minutes of her video, because Joy did a Q&A. I was like, for sure I remember other stuff happening. And yeah, I do. Ben Seawald, he had like posted on Instagram, and he hadn't posted in a long time, and it was like, lyrics to this song, it's real, check it out. And it ended up being transphobic. And Jinger gave a speech at the Creation Museum. Talk about a small world. Check out my video about the Creation Museum. And she gave a speech, and it looks like from the programs, it looks like she was just talking about her book, which is Becoming Free Indeed, which is about her disentangling, not deconstructing. But it was an important entry into the Duggar verse because she actually was one of the first Duggars to talk badly about Bill Gothard and accuse him of running a cult. So that was important. And keep in mind with any of the Duggars that I talk about, just because I say something positive about them or indicate that they're moving in a more progressive direction, that is not an endorsement. I'm pretty sure that all of them are still Republicans, and until I see a Fundy or an ex-Fundy or anybody who is deconstructed, until I see them like being a full-fledged LGBTQ ally and actually changing their beliefs and actually apologizing, none of them are off the hook for me. But at the same time, they are human beings, so it's okay to be like, oh, that's awesome that they're doing that. Oh, that's terrible that they're doing that, you know, and they are public figures, and they haven't, maybe some of them have kind of retreated away from the public life, but most of them are still very actively involved in social media, show business, or they would like to be in show business. So that is why people like me continue to critique their behavior, because they make it our problem. And so just a few things I wanted to talk about today, and this is going to be very brief, but let's begin. I'm assuming none of you need a refresher on who the Duggars are, but I guess I'll give you one. huge family, 19 Kids and Counting. Literally had a show called 19 Kids and Counting. Had several TLC spinoffs and shows made about them. Very conservative. Several of the members have run for different U.S. political positions. None of them have won. That's not true. Jim Bob actually did have a successful Senate campaign, but nothing good is happening to him since then. Sorry, correction there. Jim Bob did serve in the Arkansas House and then immediately tried to run for United States Senate, in which he got his ass handed to him by Tim Hutchinson, who is Asa Hutchinson's brother, who is, or was, trying to run for president not too long ago. He did try to run again, like right after Josh's trial, which everybody was very confused on why that was even happening. And then, of course, old Jeb here, he also tried to run and was not successful. About 10, I think 9 or 10 of the kids are married. Most of them have kids. There's a shitload of grand Duggars. Josh, of course, is the oldest child, and he committed sex crimes, and now he is in prison. Most of the first half of the Duggar kids are married, except for Jana, and people have all kinds of different theories on why she's still unmarried. At this point, even I'm getting a little offended because Jana's like, what, 35? She's not an old maid, okay? 35 is not that old. So let's leave Jana be. And who knows? Maybe she'll be like the Botkins. Maybe she'll marry in like 10 years and we'll all either be shocked or be like, Duggar who? You know what I mean? Because that's another thing that I'm going to address in this video is kind of how the Duggars are kind of not relevant anymore. And like the recent interviews that they do, even the interviews that Jill does, and Jill is probably the hottest commodity when it comes to the Duggars right now because she has spoken out the most against not only Bill Gothard, but Jim Bob himself because he did steal her money and hide her abuse and make excuses for the worst member of her family and just been a huge jerk. And so people want to talk to her. Once again, not an endorsement, but this is a fact. People are trying to talk to Jill because she has spilled the most information about the family because for the longest time they were kind of you don't actually get to look past the curtain when it comes to them. We only know like what was on the TV show. And now we know that TLC has just been absolutely complacent and complicit in abuse over the years. They exploit these people. They actively had predators on their staff. They don't pay people properly. They manipulate storylines. They just are not a good company. And so I'm glad that they're not working for TLC anymore, but at the same time, like, oh, they fucked over a lot of families, a lot of kids, and now their lives are all messed up. And then even worse, sometimes they'll come in and make reality shows about their lives being terrible because they were on a reality show. You know what I mean? I'm not just talking about the Duggars, but yeah, just yucky TLC. But anyway, I just bring that up just to tell you that like even podcasts and interviews that Jill goes on don't get very many views. I think people have stopped caring. And so when they do anything, because a lot of them, the women of the family will make vlogs, and as long as they're happy, I guess that's fine, you know, it brings them joy, but they are showing their children, they're talking about their private details, of their children's private details, and it's just really dangerous considering the state of the internet regardless, but then the fact that they are Duggars and how people are very keyed in to what they're doing. And in an ideal world, I should not know what any of the Duggars' children look like. But I do. And I know their names and their birth histories and any medical problems that they have because the Duggar women and men are putting this information online. And they shouldn't be, regardless. So if they were just making vlogs about organization and baking, that would be one thing, but they're not. They're featuring their kids very heavily, and that's just not the kind of world we live in anymore where that's safe to do. And so that is a huge gripe I have, but I bring that up to say like a lot of them are vlogging, and so that's how we keep up with them, but people don't always vlog in a way that's interesting. You know what I mean? Like they don't really talk about anything like controversial except when they go on social media. So Ben Seawald, Jessa Duggar, you know what I mean? She's Jessa Seawald now. Her husband, he was taking a break from Instagram, and then January of this year, he hops back on to direct everyone's attention to this song, Farm Talk by Shai Lin. Look it up. Deep Truths. Eyeball emoji. Longtime viewers of Fundy Fridays might recognize Shai Lin, the rapper, from James's episode about Paula White. Shai Lin was the one who wrote the song False Teachers, which lists a bunch of prosperity gospel preachers. So interesting that this is the music he's making now. As you can see, he's really into, doing anti-racism work, and that's amazing. So I don't know. He's an interesting dude. He did complete some pastoral work at a couple of different churches, but I don't know if he has his own church right now. I know he does a lot of speeches, and you can book him for various things. Of course, his comment section is, love this song. It's a great song. Can't wait to hear blah, 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 blah. And Ben, he's a rap fan. He is a rapper himself.
Does anybody here believe that?
It's an 8-minute long song, a modern parable, and it's like, it literally is, it's lyrical spiritual miracle, but for Christians.
The righteous resistors will surely be the victors, and I'm no longer your sister, friends. You can call me Mr.
This is not a good song, and the content itself is transphobic. It's about different farm animals who want to be other farm animals.
I know that when you look at me, what you see is a hog. But since I can remember, I've never felt like a hog. In the deepest part of me, I've always known I was a dog.
So all these animals are in a barnyard, and they're talking about different things, and this pig is saying that he would rather be a dog, and that he's going to change his entire life, and he's going to live in the house, and he needs to be referred to as a canine.
Have a chat with Farmer. Surely he will make time. By the way, I'm from here on out to be called Canine.
So then a hen, I guess this hen identifies as a rooster, comes up and gives a speech about how they're tired of their eggs being taken and then being slaughtered, and that they're going to also talk to the farmer and try and get a place in the house. And they said, I was your sister, and now I'm a mister.
With farmers' literal malignance, this is my resistance. You were in my corner when I was born a hen. Now I declare myself a male chicken because I've been born again.
And everyone is applauding, and they're super supportive of this transition, and I would be too, but I guess the song keeps going.
I used the rest of my time just to say that I'm appalled at Mr. Frog, the only one who did not applaud. If you do not affirm these animals, then shame on you. Make plain your view, because you got some explaining to do.
Then the horse comes up and is saying, you animals have a right to self-determination, and who is the farmer to tell you how to live your life? But Mr. Frog, I noticed you're the only one who didn't applaud. Shame on you.
Seems to me that you're confused concerning what is real, and that reality for you is determined by what you feel. That logic is mistaken, though. Let's just take it slow. Just because you feel that something's true, it doesn't make it so.
The frog is the one that sees that everyone's crazy and they don't believe him, and it's just dog whistles. To use a animal analogy, it's just dog whistles for transphobia. Like, it's not even creative at this point.
Like Mr. Canine, let's say you feel you can fly. If you jumped off a cliff in your zeal, you would die.
I wonder what the frog is going to be a metaphor for. Maybe it's a self-insert of the rapper? I don't know. I can surely hope that it'll be more complicated than that.
But what kind of friend would I be if I didn't speak to you the truth? Honestly, I have a different view, I must confess. But my disagreement doesn't mean I love you any less.
Also, this song is ass, so I don't know why. It's just like, Ben was maybe taking some of them black hole gummies, and he was listening to this album, and he was like, this is so deep. The people have to know. Surely if I express myself this way, they'll understand why I enjoy being so transphobic.
His vivid intolerance on exhibit made them livid. They never thought that with his ribbit he could be a bigot.
Then the horse literally kicks the frog so hard that he flies away into like a different county, and they're talking about how they were ashamed that they were ever friends with him.
When the frog was finished speaking, the horse was so enraged that he lifted up his hind hooves and kicked them off the stage. He flew so far away that they never saw him again. The group was all ashamed that they ever called him a friend.
I don't know if this is coming from experience. I don't understand. Like, if the rapper is supposed to be the frog and this was a real situation, I'm certainly not on his side. Like, it sounds like you were a bad friend.
No matter how much you try to quack, you'll never be a duck. He oinks, he neighs, I ribbit, you cluck.
So then the animals go into the farmer's house and they see that the farmer's son is there, who is apparently a child, and they kill him.
Was the farmer's child, his son meek and mild. The rage against the farmer made the animals go wild. Without hesitation, exerted all their power, attacked the poor child, and he was murdered and devoured.
Okay, then the rapper redoes the ending, and the farmer shoots the chicken, and the pig that identifies as a dog, and eats them the next day.
The farmer had his gun, animals start to run. Canine and Mr. Chicken shot down one by one. The very next morning, after the man awakened, the farmer had chicken, waffles, eggs, ham, and bacon.
And then a person off camera says, well, I don't understand. How does this tie all together? And the rapper says, well, they're both true. Let me explain. And then the credits roll.
Like, how does this all tie together? Well, actually, they're both kind of true. Let me explain how.
So I don't know. Are they talking about if both endings are true, they killed a child? Are they trying to say that something about grooming, or like a trans person, like themselves, like their old identity dying? I don't think that's what he's saying. But also, if the farmer is God and the farmer killed the animals, he's saying that God will strike them down. Either way, what compelled Ben to think that this was so special that he needed us to go look? And it does not reflect well on him. They were also recently on another podcast called Now That We're a Family, which seems to be two Christians. I don't actually know if they did something other than this podcast, I don't know. And they interview all kinds of conservatives. They talk about topics that I don't agree with, and they have people on their channel that I certainly do not agree with. And so it makes a lot of sense that they would interview Ben and Jessa, but they were talking about fantasy and like sci-fi and stuff. And I've noticed a lot of, like, more than half of the Fundy men that I've researched, they do tend to like fantasy, sci-fi, like all that stuff. And it's just interesting how they compartmentalize it, because they're all about being in the world, not of the world, and they have their own versions of different types of popular media so that they don't have to go venture out into secular society. But they always have their exceptions, like how Paul really likes Avatar: The Last Airbender and like other fantasy shows. And it's just interesting because that's exactly what's happening in this interview.
I feel like, too, we were just laughing with my sister because she got so mad. We both got mad at our husbands for showing us Lord of the Rings. And we didn't grow up with any fantasy or anything at all. And I remember being like, what is this? It's so creepy and weird. And she thought the same thing. And I think it was just kind of funny seeing how you grow up and what you appreciate.
I just look at it as it's kind of like if God pulled back the curtain and we could see the spiritual realm. It's not so unreal as we would think, So that's kind of the perspective I'm coming from. Like, hey, this is like great spiritual analogies almost.
Yes. Let's just establish what it is. You and I have an ability to think a little deeper, and to see beyond.
I was like, are we dabbling in the occult? What are we doing? He's like, this is not our world. This is a different universe. I'm like, is this like paganism? He's like, no, it's a different realm. It's not even.
Yes, I know. I feel the same way.
It's an opportunity to be unselfish though. And I've sat down and initially at times, and you have as well, where you're like, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy this. This wasn't really my idea of what I would have picked. But then you sit down, you watch it, and you're appreciating your spouse and how much they're laughing at the Dick Van Dyke show. And you're like, this is kind of great, And so you kind of, I think marriage, if you let it can kind of broaden your horizons a little bit, for sure. Not make you so narrow and nerdy.
I just find that so fascinating that they're willing to draw the line at some things, but they're like, it's okay if we do this, especially with Lord of the Rings. Like Narnia, I expect, and it almost seems like it's like trying to virtue signal something. It almost seems like they're trying to be like, some secular things are okay because what? Like, I don't understand. Like, why is it okay for you to watch secular media, but all secular society is bad? Like, it either is all bad or it isn't. You know what I mean? It kind of cracks the veneer a little bit, because it's like there's nothing wrong with watching Star Wars or Lord of the Rings. Like, it's just interesting to me that they're going to be so fundy about certain things, so legalistic about some things, but when they talk about the freedom in Christ and certain things are in the Bible and certain things aren't, like what Ginger talks about, how suddenly they're like, okay, it's okay if I watch this certain movie or if I listen to this certain artist, or I'll make exceptions. You know, Brittany Dawn using Taylor Swift audios but calling her demonic. Why is it okay for you to do certain things but not for other people to do them? You know what I mean? It's because you like it and you're not willing to give it up for your religion. I forgot to mention that Ben also talked about growing up watching Pride and Prejudice with his sisters, and he's like kind of into chick flicks, which is an interesting personality trait of his.
Pride and Prejudice. That's something that he grew up with like 3 sisters directly under him, and it took him several years to finally get a brother. So he watched a lot of those, you know, like the classics.
Well, and initially it was, man, why are my sisters so crazy about this Mr. Darcy? Like, it seems like this is a trend. Like, whatever he's got going on, I need to take some lessons from him, so that all the ladies will be. So this was me as a teenager. That's why I initially started watching chick flicks and Pride and Prejudice, because I was like, all right, I need to take some lessons here, figure out what I need to be doing to be that guy, you know?
Also on this podcast, Ben and Jessa talked a little bit more about their actual theological beliefs than I've ever heard on, say, 19 Kids and Counting. Like, they actually are talking about specific stuff, about Calvinism, about Reformed theology. And you guys know I don't know much about that, so I am welcoming you to explain that in the comment section. But here is them talking a little bit more deeply about their religion, and I had never heard this before.
You know, the first few months after we met, I was actually reading some books that were of the Reformed perspective, and I was kind of like just like learning more about that, like growing in my understanding of that.
You're reading The Sovereignty of God by A.W. Pink.
Yeah, some hardcore stuff.
Yes, that's still legit.
Good.
I consider that like the deep end. Like A.W. Pink is, yeah.
Man, this girl's a thinker. She's a theologian. She's all right, you know? So by and large, we agreed on so many of the, you know, big issues you think about, like Christianity,
99%.
You know, the Trinity, you're saved by grace alone, through faith alone, you know, the big stuff. But, you know, we did kind of butt heads a little bit on certain things, like,
you put that so nicely.
Reformed distinctives, like, I suppose you could say, like, you know, how does God elect people to salvation? The extent of the atonement, predestination, those kinds of things. So, which a lot of Christians disagree on, you know, great Christian people that we look up to might see things one way or another way. And over time, the Lord's answered that prayer, and we have come to a more in agreement, I would say. You're maybe a 4-point Calvinist now.
Oh, 4-pointer. And I think he had some like maybe hyper Calvinistic tendencies, which was also a little off-putting.
Right.
And I think he's found better balance too in his life.
But and I realized I wasn't leading well, because she was, every time she'd open her Bible, that's the only thing she could see was, is this verse for a Reformed doctrine or against a Reformed doctrine? And like her whole like devotional time with the Lord, that's all she could think about. And so I realized, like, that's not good. Like, you need to be able to find joy in the Lord and you see other truths from Scripture that are there in the text as well, and not just get so focused on this that you don't have any joy until you've figured it out, you know? And so
that was very helpful to me. He was like, babe, let's just think about the promises of God. Like, let's just look at Scripture and dwell on some of the attributes of God and just and focus on that right now. And so that was really encouraging for me to just kind of recenter and not have every Bible reading just like so fixated on one topic.
And so that was in January. Then in April, Ginger spoke at the Creation Museum, specifically at the Answers in Genesis Answers for Women conference. Okay, several times during this thing, I refer to what Jinger gives as a speech. It appears that it's probably more of a casual talk because every time I've seen a picture of it, she's sitting next to two people sitting down. And also, I keep saying she was at the Creation Museum, and that is not technically true, although the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter are billed as the same attraction a lot of times. Like, when you buy tickets for one, you get a discount for the other. They are not right next to each other. I don't even know how I would describe it. It's like they're the same attraction, but one's like slightly 20 minutes away, but they treat them as the same thing. And the Ark Encounter does have like a little building before you get to it that has speeches, and it's like a convention center. They also sell books out of it. So anyways, yeah, I kept seeing coverage of this because it's the like, what is a woman, defense of womanhood bullshit, like femininity is under attack.
Hey guys, it's Ginger Volo. I hope that you'll consider joining me for the 2024 Reclaim Answers for Women conference, where we'll discuss how to reclaim God's good design for women and overcome the war on women that threatens to overtake us. I hope that you'll consider joining us. See you there.
The page that I'm on, which originally housed that Jinger promo video and what I'm about to read to you, has since been deleted. I think they update the website all the time, and so they don't keep things, they don't keep a lot of old stuff on there. And so this is what Answers in Genesis wants you to know about this conference, okay? What is a woman? We've all seen the cultural war on women escalate alarmingly in recent days. Judges can't define what a woman is. Sports teams allow men on women's teams because they refuse to acknowledge even the most basic differences between men and women. Terminology that was once exclusive to women is now inclusive, e.g. pregnant people. Men pretending to be women receive courage awards on special days designed to honor women. The privacy of women's restrooms and locker rooms is violated in the name of gender neutrality. The message is clear. Embrace gender inclusivity and erase gender distinctives or else. Yeah, they'd probably really like that Farm Talk song. Yet this is contrary to the good Creator's design for men and women. God created male and female in his image to display his glory in unique ways. Genesis 1:27. There are two separate genders, designed in the DNA as either male or female from the moment of fertilization. There's more than that, with distinct characteristics, roles, and responsibilities. Yeah, your gender role is a part of your DNA genome. Don't you know that? As Christian women, we need to give practical, biblically sound answers to a culture that is quickly erasing what it means to be a woman. We need to raise the next generation to hold fast to the foundational truths of gender that begin in Genesis and continue throughout God's Word. That's right, all women are gone. The only thing that's left is non-binary sex demons. At Answers for Women 2024, you'll learn how to reclaim God's good design for women and overcome the war on women that threatens to overtake us. Engaging, passionate speakers who love God and His Word will equip you with biblical and practical answers to live confidently and courageously as a woman. Speakers include Ginger Volo, author of Free Coming, Free Indeed, Laura Perry, author of Transgender to Transformed. Oh, Louisiana Congressman Mike Johnson and his wife Kelly. What? God, I need to get a hold of this footage. Many others. Women of God need to rise up, reclaim, and live out God's good design for women for His glory. A woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Proverbs 31:30. The conference is a wonderful opportunity to help yourself, your daughters, your granddaughters, and the women in your church to rely on God's all-sufficient word for womanhood. Register today. Sponsored by Women for America and Nutramax Laboratories. But other than that, I haven't seen any actual footage of Ginger speaking. And I looked all over and I was like, somebody has to have had it, right? Maybe they banned cameras and videos during the speeches. Anyways, long story short, I looked on Answers in Genesis TV, their little streaming service, and I got the free monthly trial, and I went and looked, and they have every conference except for the most recent one. They even have last year's women's conference that featured Allie Beth Stuckey.
So as you are tempted to despair for what our country used to be, perhaps, to what it is today, as you look at the absolute degeneracy and confusion and depravity that has wrecked our nation's soul, understand that this is what the church has always been up against. It's always been up against confusion about one's identity. It's always been up against abortion. It's always been up against child abuse, promiscuity, corruption, tyranny, the demolition of the family. This week, 6 people were murdered at a Christian school in Nashville. 3 9-year-olds whose parents, as we speak, likely are burying their little bodies in a small casket in the ground by someone who actually believed that they were the opposite gender. Our nation's leadership has said more this week to honor so-called transgenderism than these victims. Corporations have done so too. They won't issue a statement about Christian persecution. They won't light up their buildings in the cities. The media won't reconsider their hateful rhetoric about Christianity. Hollywood won't wonder whether their depictions of Christians as these evil vessels are wrong.
Jesus Christ, this woman is evil. I'm not going to lie to you. I was just skipping through this speech to see if she had said anything fucked up. And oh boy, did I find something. Obviously, I want to honor and respect the victims of this school shooting. But for Allie to turn such a somber and serious moment into bashing transgender people and then to claim Christian persecution in the same sentence is honestly ridiculous and so offensive that I can't even wrap my mind around it. How dare you? But I just got really mad because last year's, it looks like, was March 31st. They didn't upload the conference until June. So I'm like, damn it. This was in April. It's almost June now. Why haven't they uploaded it? So I got really mad because I was like, I wanted to be able to play a clip from this thing in order to justify making this video, and I can't find it. And so I don't know what I'm going to have to do. Would a video just about her speech be enough? Like, would that, like, or should I just do it for Patreon? I don't know. I think there's also the possibility that her speech might be boring because according to the program, it's just her talking about becoming free indeed, which she's already done. But from that clip, she talked about the war on womanhood. I don't know. Let me watch it and then I'll decide if it's video worthy. But anyway, it's very strange that she was at the Creation Museum at a women's conference. And hey, I love women. Nothing wrong with women. It's their like perceived attack on femininity and just how like it just reeks of transphobia. Like also Jinger was like the highest like build on this thing. Like she is the draw. Ginger Duggar. So anyway, Jinger of course lives in LA with her husband Jeremy, and they do that thing I was just talking about a lot. They do the like, we like some secular stuff, but we have to draw a line, but we live in LA, but we're Christian. Like, pick a lane, please. And I recently found this picture of Jeremy and Jinger posing with Mel Gibson. And so I personally don't think there's any reason to get close enough to Mel Gibson to take a picture with him. If you're going to be that close, you need to put a kick me sign on his back. Like, he's a real piece of shit. Just a horrible person. So I was like, oh, that's who you want to take a picture with? Okay. So, we'll maybe touch base about her speech later once it's uploaded to Answers in Genesis. And also let this video be a reminder to me to go cancel that subscription before it renews, because I swear to God, I'm not giving Ken Ham $5. Another thing that happened recently, in the same month, in fact, is that Jill did unfortunately have a stillbirth. And that is so horribly upsetting and traumatic and sad. And I feel really awful for her. And I hope that she has privacy, and I hope she's able to grieve, and I hope that everybody is nice to her, and I hope that she is able to find some comfort, and I hope that the Lord provides her comfort as well as her family and friends. And that is just so fucking awful and sad. And I'm sorry, Jill, that you had to go through that. And hopefully you'll see your baby in heaven someday. Jill and her family recently did a memorial for their baby, and it looks really sweet. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next topic now. Joy. Little Joy. She's so interesting. She's like really trying to continue the Duggar legacy. Last fall, I did a video diving a little bit more into not just Joy, but her husband, Austin Forsyth's family, because they are prominent fundamentalists. They run a family camp. They were featured on World's Strictest Parents. It seems like also they use Joy and the Duggar name to get publicity for their family camp, but yeah, they're wild. Joy is mostly known now for her like lack of safety around her kids, riding ATVs with a toddler on her lap, leaving guns out, so much so that like she forgets that they're out and vlogs. You have to be so not paying attention to your surroundings to even leave a gun out where a child could get to it, but also that you don't even think anything of it when you open up the camera phone to take a video. You know what I mean? Put that shit away, do it safely, and don't let your kids anywhere near the guns, okay? That shouldn't even be a big deal. So she's really bad about putting her kids on camera. She's the main culprit of the kids on camera thing. Even like Ginger has started to reel that in, but Joy has not gotten the memo. Probably because that's all she's ever known. She was raised completely in a situation where it was just a fact of life that you will film your children and that you will make money off of them, especially since she is kind of a trad wife. Like, this is one of the only ways that she can make money and it not be controversial. I'm not condoning that. I think it's fucked up, but she seemed to have been really affected by Josh's trial for obvious reasons. We're not going to get into that. But that seemed to kind of shake her foundation, and she has been disentangling a little bit. And of course, I said earlier, disentangling is the fundy word for saying that you're deconstructing, but it does not have that negative connotation that deconstruction does. And so she is examining her beliefs, figuring out what she wants, trying to be an individual, and she was talking candidly about that in a recent vlog.
With your sisters opening up, what was specifically difficult for you? Any disentangling? I feel like any child growing up, you're always gonna, at the, teenage years, you're gonna start questioning things. You're gonna start having those thoughts of like, okay, well, what do I believe? You're gonna become an individual. And I feel like I did that some, but I do think that, reading my sister's books and just, not even reading their books, but just talking to them, specifically Jinger. I feel like talking to Jinger before her book came out and talking specifics, I feel like it kind of did rock my world a little bit, because I thought I had worked through some of the things that I thought I had worked through, and I feel like there was a lot of things that I just realized after talking with her. I was like, oh, you know what, I've never specifically thought about this area, or things that I believe, or what do I don't believe, or I knew I didn't believe certain things, but I hadn't actually worked through that and why. And so I think that it kind of did shake my world a little bit.
She talks about how her sister's books kind of rocked her world and opened her eyes, how it's natural to question things and how it's part of growing up.
And I think obviously in our relationship with the Lord, we're always going to be growing and learning, and we're never going to get to a place where we know God fully and we know we have that strong relationship that we want with Him and we're done growing. We're always going to be growing. So I think that's, but I do think that reading their books did jumpstart some of those questions, and I think it was in a good way of kind of the same thing that Ginger has gone through, of really just running to Jesus and, God, what does your word say? What is truth? What does the Bible say? And I think it's been a good jumpstart, although I think it's a hard process to go through. I am really thankful that I'm going through it when my kids are still young, and Austin and I are being able to do this together and really see, what do we believe? What does the Bible say? And coming to a healthy place of just being able to work through all that together.
I'm decently satisfied with her answer. She's saying, you got to always strive to know God, and it's a journey and it's a process, and you need to actually examine what the Bible says versus what are your personal beliefs about things. And so I think that is a good step. It is a step towards progress. Like I said, still a Republican, so let's give her a little bit more time to process those things. Hopefully she'll realize some things, and maybe, hopefully, if we really pray, she'll become a communist someday. So I'm mostly kidding, but appreciate the growth, but these are baby steps. And who knows, crazier things have happened. And right now we are in a very strange time. Like, a lot of people are changing their beliefs. A lot of people are atoning for their past mistakes. But a lot of people are digging their heels in and doubling down. So it's just a strange time, especially with the internet, especially with how often people, update their kind of belief systems. And I think also that this video being so short and me not having as many updates is hopefully a good thing. Isn't that what we all wanted, was for the Duggars to kind of just quietly fall off the map? And I think if it wasn't the nail in the coffin, it was the eulogy. Shiny happy people. I think that really kind of cemented it's now everybody knows now the secrets. Everybody knows how fucked up IBLP is. Everybody knows how evil Jim Bob Duggar is. Everybody knows how perverted Josh Duggar is, and how this family was trying to prop up this perfect ideal, and they were trying to champion this really toxic, harmful belief system, and how they tried to infiltrate politics. And I think people are just fed up, and the people that are still genuinely fans of Duggars were always going to be. They obviously are biased towards the Duggars, and I mean, every day people are in the fundamentalist community are getting arrested, being sued, leaving their church, every day. You never know. This is a day-by-day situation, and I think we're going to see, hopefully, a lot more deconstruction. Will we ever see a, super leftist Duggar? Who knows? Maybe, but I am not going to hold my breath. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I did give in to the productivity guilt. I was like, I got to put a video out, because otherwise, what? God will be disappointed in me? I don't really know. It's just kind of this nagging, gnawing feeling. I just wanted to get a video out, and I think I made it worth your time. I really hope I did. I mean, I used to put out 10-minute long videos. I think I had a video out once, it was 8 minutes. They don't all need to be barn burner, blockbuster, long-ass episodes. Although I do have some of those coming up. I kind of used May as a transition, and so next month I'll just tell you coming up. Next month, I have a video about missionary organizations. I have a video about He Gets Us in the works. And eventually, someday, hopefully this year, I will do a Plathville 5. But it's really hard because not only do they copyright claim me, Discovery, so I have to be willing to make a free video. But sometimes, most of the time, it gets blocked worldwide, which always drives me crazy, because I can offset the cost of a copyrighted video with a sponsor or something. Sometimes it's just worth it to have people watch it for free because it brings eyes to the channel. But when they block it worldwide, I can't do anything about it except trim the video to where it's not even watchable. So I have to brainstorm. I'm thinking about using just still images. I'm thinking about doing a voiceover pretending to, be Olivia or something. I don't know. I got to figure out something, but I know you guys are wanting Plathville 5, especially because it's been crazy apparently. Olivia's been deconstructing on TV, and so, and just talking about her life, and I want to see it, so who knows. But I say no promises, but it's something that I want to do. Yeah, lots of good stuff coming up. Also, next week, James is supposed to have a video about Harrison Butker, and you probably all know who that is by now. He is a kicker for the Chiefs. He did a very offensive speech at a college, so people are definitely up in arms about that. He's weird about dudes, manly dude man. He was at the man conference that Mark Driscoll was at. He's friends with Josh Hawley. Lots of bad stuff happening in Missouri, but that's every day. Yeah, so if you enjoy my content, remember to consensually smash that like and subscribe button. Follow us on social media. If you want to tithe, we have Patreon and YouTube memberships to get you access to the Discord and private live streams. Oh, I almost forgot to bring it up. Sunday, May 19th, we are having a live stream for patrons and YouTube members. And that, of course, will be, you can watch it later if you can't catch it. And that should be, I haven't decided if we're doing it in the morning or in the afternoon or at night, but we'll let you know, obviously, if you're a member. So, yeah, that's always fun. If you can't do that, just a like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we do have a brand new merch store, fundyfridays.shop, which is now powered by Fourth Wall. There are our new merch manufacturers and distributors, and we have all kinds of new designs: Overweight Sexually Broken Loser, Fungi Fridays, we got the classics, we got stickers, posters, all that good stuff. And yeah, fundyfridays.shop. And I hope you guys are having a good weekend. If it's not raining, have fun outside, be kind to each other, follow your instincts. A lot of times they're correct. So anyway, love you. Bye-bye. See you soon.